Hello guys, and welcome back to another cold episode. On today's episode, I wanted to talk to you about how good Yu-Gi-Oh! Is, and all of the things, personally, that I really enjoy about Yu-Gi-Oh! Now, with currently Master Duel being in one of the worst formats it's been in, and getting probably worse as time goes on, I just wanted to show up and be like, hey, let's talk about the things that I enjoy, and this is just going to be nice, quick, and simple, and this is more so just an opportunity for you guys as well to tell me what you guys thoroughly enjoy. So yeah, that's basically it. Alright, let's start off with my personal favorite card in Tri-Brigade Shuraig, and the insane amount of utility and interesting ideas put forth within this individual card. First of all, tri-typing, I think, is super cool and such a great mechanic. Second of all, I think link summoning is a really awesome mechanic for Yu-Gi-Oh! In the current metagame, or in modern Yu-Gi-Oh!, right? I think it is a great addition to Yu-Gi-Oh! As a whole, and it makes the game a lot more dynamic and a lot more interesting. Yes, it had its issues early on, but I think they have mostly been, not necessarily solved, but made to be less egregious, and really have made the game a lot more interesting. Right? So overall, I do really enjoy Link monsters. On top of that, I think such a cards like Shuraig or just Tri-Brigade in general provide such a fun and dynamic gameplay aspect to it, with a lot of different variety with it. First of all, if you don't know, Shuraig has multiple effects, which is standard for Yu-Gi-Oh cards at the time, or at this time. And that's another thing I really like, having a bunch of different options that each individual card can give you. That's super dope. I hate being forced into one thing and one thing only, and that's kind of all you do. But yeah, Tri-Brigade in particular doesn't have that issue, and Shuraig is a great example of this. First of all, on summon, it banishes a card. That's great. Non-targeting as well, which makes it even better. It's probably one of the best removals in the game, besides banishing non-target face down, pretty much. That's like the only thing that could be better. But on top of that, it also has the ability to do that if another card is special summoned. So you could special summon this and not use the effect, and then wait for another one of your cards to be special summoned to then activate it. Again, adding those additional layers, which makes it very fun and very nuanced. Sure, you get that initial burst of power, and a lower level player could potentially use that and take advantage of it and make a very solid play. Boom, here's a really good removal spell. But an even better player could be like, cool, I'm going to use this as just a way to get a body onto my field, and then use the effect later, maybe. Right? In certain situations, that could be even better, right? Pair it with a Rugal to bring back a guy, and all of a sudden, bada bing, bada boom, you have more options available to you. On top of that, it has a secondary effect, where if it's sent to graveyard, it searches a card as well, which is great. Another way to add additional extension, or potentially allow you to recycle your resources, and it's great. There are times, often, not too many times, but there are times where I have summoned him in order to send him to the graveyard for a link summon to get a search of a specific card. Most notably, I use this in Lyrilisc in order to grab one of the Lyrilisc monsters to special summon it with Ferrigit. This is something that's very useful and honestly extremely fun to do. And this is where I think it's just overall a very solid card and a very solid experience, right? And this is something that I genuinely love about a lot of Yu-Gi-Oh cards, is that there are so many effects upon them that each individual card gives you so many different options, right? Garunix can pop any of the Tri-Brigade, or any of the fire monsters, right, from your deck that are Beast, Warrior, or Winged Beast, which gives you options to pair it with other things, right? For example, Tri-Brigade. And Tri-Brigade can also be paired alongside Sprite, because that's a bunch of 2s. And guess what? Sprite can be paired with anything that necessarily has a bunch of 2s in it. So you can pair Sprite with the Tri-Brigade, and there you go. There's a bunch of guys that you can special summon off of the Sprite effects, which is another really cool mechanic. I'm also a big fan of trap cards. I think trap cards are such a unique and interesting mechanic within card games in general that works really well within Yu-Gi-Oh! Sure, they're not really utilized at the current moment in modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And are basically shunned because all of the good trap cards are basically floodgates, But when they're not floodgates, it's an incredibly dynamic game when you actually get to utilize traps. And not just like hand traps, but actually setting cards and waiting a turn to utilize them. Especially when they have such powerful effects, like, for example, Destructive Daruma Karma Cannon. Hey, what if your field wasn't there anymore? It's just such an interesting mechanic that isn't really utilized in pretty much any other game, and it's such a unique thing to Yu-Gi-Oh! That really makes me want to come back and continue playing the game. And the best thing in Yu-Gi-Oh!, hands down, no questions asked, is the extra deck. The entirety of it. All of the cards that go into the extra deck, except for pendulums, they don't count, they're not real, they can't hurt you. I'm only kidding. But honestly, the extra deck is such a fantastic mechanic, once again, and it's something that I thoroughly enjoy. Being able to slap in 15 cards that you can see at pretty much any time, as long as you've fulfilled the requirements, is really interesting. And with the addition of Link monsters being put into the game, you now have a lot more options available to you that require less in terms of deck building to specifically get into. And it allows for a lot more nuance in deck building, in deck decisions, in actual gameplay mechanics and stuff like that, that really can provide a lot more advantage instead of just drawing cards or putting cards onto the field. It's something where it's like, the threat of a card in the extra can mean so much more, right? Which I think is just such a cool and interesting mechanic that I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Honestly uses extremely well, and I think most other games haven't even really tried, and if they have, it's something like companions in Magic that just are awful, and like no one really enjoys nearly as much, or are like very, very rarely used, at least by the company that makes the game, Wizards of the Coast, there you go. So, like, all in all, I really, really enjoy the way that the extra deck works, right? Especially with Link monsters in particular. But I think, you know, you have such great mechanics like Synchro Summoning, inherently just a great mechanic. Sure, Synchro monsters are kind of busted, but they're also just really, really cool to summon, and they're really well balanced. And just overall, such a great mechanic. Rituals should go into the extra deck. You can't fight me on that, but there you go. Those are my thoughts. And yeah, I would just love to hear what you guys like about Yu-Gi-Oh! Whether that's something individual, like an individual card, like for example, Triple Tactics Talents, or a different card. That was just the example I brought. Or a specific deck, or whatever it may be. I just want to know what you guys are thankful for on this day of Thanksgiving. Yeah, this will be posted on Thanksgiving, so there you go. But yeah, happy Thanksgiving to those of you who celebrate it, and to those who don't, I hope you have a happy day anyway. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching, and remember to always stay frosty. Bye-bye. Shout out to the Frost Guard, my members. Thank you guys so much for the support, and I hope you enjoy the content.